All right, so I want to have a hangout on the non-scientific arguments against the fine-tuning arguments, but because Google Hangouts is run by morons, if you will, um, I can't, for whatever reason, the link to allow people to come into the Hangout is not, no, it's not working out. So I'm going to be trying that, and so this is going to be a boring ass hangout for the first couple minutes because yeah. So I put the link I assume should be the one that you are gonna look for inside of the info of this hangout, and maybe it's I have to actually be broadcast for it to make sense or something. But anyways, yeah, there's a couple arguments against fine tuning arguments, and the fine tuning argument is that the narrow range of constants and initial conditions found in our universe um, are so finely tuned that that they're so finely tuned to allow for life to obtain that it seems highly unlikely that they arose due to chance. And right now, I'm trying to get people to join this freaking hangout, but it's just not working. And it's like, Google, you guys have the ability to make something really cool and really interesting and really, uh, you know, really like probably lucrative by attempting to freaking make Google Hangouts more intuitive and to make it easier to give a link to someone so they can join. But no, not interested. Interested in making it so people can have 8 hour long hangouts because that's crucial that that's allowed to happen. 8 hour long hangouts. We have to make sure people are able to have 8 hour long hangouts. But to make sure that there's a nice, easy link that can be given out uh, in order for people to come and join. Nah, no, no, no. Let's have a nice, like seriously. This is the link. It's after 50,000 forward slashes. It's then SSPRZI9D underscore IVR. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And it's like you can't handle that, Google. You're the most powerful search engine ever of all time. Too difficult for you to make Google Hangouts something, you know, easy to go through. I want to look into side chat and see if other people could tell me, Joe, you're an idiot. This is what you need to do. But what the frick is so bright? So yeah, I guess I'll try and refresh. I'm sure that's going to be fun. All right, let's see if this frickin' works. Ugh. All right, try one more thing. Um,
You look a little lonely there, Joe.
Jesus, that scared the crap out of me. How'd you get in? Can you post a link in the side chat so I can post it to other people?
The link's underneath your in the video description. That's when I clicked on.
It worked for you?
Yeah, I'm on my cell phone though, so I can't really do a whole lot. But
It doesn't work for. It doesn't even work for me. I tried to do it on my other computer.
yeah, I seen your video in the G Plus. I clicked on that. It brings me to YouTube.
Yeah.
I look in the video description, and you have the link for the Hangout, and then underneath that you got another link for uh, intelligent design, or not intelligent design, but
Fine tuning.
Yeah, the fine tuning. Yeah. So then I clicked on the link and it brought me here.
Oh, I guess
And
I
I,
guess I'll
no,
have
I
to
was gonna
invite
say,
other people.
yeah. And I'm on my phone. That's why people on a cell phone they can talk before you unbroadcast them, but they can't. Their video won't show up on a live feed.
Hmm. It doesn't even say that I'm in my own Hangout
Yeah.
on Google Hangouts.
Yeah. Well, Google is screwed up because they just updated my app,
Yeah.
and I've been getting kicked out of all the Hangouts I've been in today. I might go 3 minutes an hour, and then it kicks me out of the Hangout.
Yeah, it
So
happened to me earlier. And for the past couple of days, um, the links have been really weird. In fact, for the past couple of weeks, the links have been really weird.
yeah, that's also I tried getting in Nadia's Hangout today, and I tried clicking on her link in the video description, and it didn't work. I actually had Nadia add me to the external chat, not the YouTube live chat, but the external chat, and I got in through there. So if you
Yeah,
go
the
in
one.
your Hangout external chat and just start adding people to that,
Can you post in there? Maybe it will show up if someone posts in there because it's not showing up on my whatchamacallit. Yeah, when I
I'd
go to.
yeah, I'd have to leave the Hangout to do that.
Oh my God.
That's no big deal. I'll just I'll try that real quick and then come back in.
All right. Well, I appreciate it if you do that, though. I appreciate that you're doing that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be right back.
All right. So there are a whole bunch of different fine-tuning arguments, arguments against the fine-tuning. The thing is, I never really found the fine-tuning argument itself to be persuasive. It actually seems quite tenuous when you think about it. It's like, look at this stuff is just right. It had to be fine-tuned for life. It didn't really have any force to me. And the other issue is, I always thought that a major overall argument against these types of arguments to infer a designer or to infer theism, the overall characteristic that or theme that they have is that they rely on scientific findings in rather theoretical or cutting edge sciences where hypotheses are still being thrown about, concepts are still being argued for and against, and there's lots of different issues and opinions and nuances. Whereas there are other sciences like geology and stuff, where of course there are cutting edge topics in those, but you know hundreds of years ago when geology was still kind of getting its shit together, arguments were used to infer the god of younger creationism, from looking at geology. But as it happens, geology became more mature, more evidence was found, and things became more solidified. And it turns out that the the things that people used to point to in geology in order to infer a young Earth, which would imply an Earth created by a Christian God, those things kind of either were misconstrued, uh, later became better understood, and didn't point to a young Earth, or were just false. And it seems like when a science becomes more mature, you can't really use things from that more mature science in order to lead to a theistic contention, and that seems to be the pattern. And that's why any fine-tuning argument that relies mostly on, talking about what the consensus of cosmologists say, or what an authority in cosmology says, or just mostly sticking on, you know, saying, hey, this is what they say in cosmology, the sciencey aspects to it. All those arguments never really were persuasive to me. And that in itself made me not really interested in looking at fine-tuning arguments. But there's, like with most other arguments, there's, a philosophical route, and then there's the scientific route. For example, William Lane Craig has his Kalam cosmological argument, and he uses both, in order to defend each of the premises, he uses both philosophical arguments and like the concept of a simultaneous causation, for example, and scientific arguments. Like it's usually kind of intuitively thought that the Big Bang is the beginning of our universe, but now it's more easy to explain that that's not necessarily the beginning of our universe. So there's a bit more nuance that William Lane Craig usually depends on now. And there's the BGV, or Borg-Gut-Vilenkin theorem, which William Lane Craig claims talks about an absolute beginning. And so that's the science defense of, I think, of the first premise of the Kalam. But like I said, there's simultaneous causation, which is a argument that could be made in terms of philosophy. And so there's two different routes to go about these kinds of arguments. And in terms of the fine-tuning argument, the sciencey route never really interested me. It never really was persuasive to me. When I was arguing with Darwin's deity, he ultimately rested on two things: an appeal to an authority and his complete misunderstanding of what fine-tuning actually is for. Reason XYZ is asking me a question in the side. He's saying, would you say that the fine-tuning argument is pretty much worthless? Since it seems to me that even if one grants everything it contains, it still has no persuasive power. I mean, obviously you would have to flesh out that argument, but and obviously it seems like if anything, if you grant everything of an argument and that argument still isn't persuasive, wouldn't it be a worthless argument regardless? Any luck, Bob?
Yeah, I sent you a message that said, "Hey Joe," and I added Dragnet and Steve McRae.
Okay.
It's just hard trying to type in while I'm driving. So.
Oh, don't worry about it. Yeah, I'm not even seeing it in my Hangouts. My own Hangout, I can't even see the lobby of. It's so lame.
I know I looked at the live chat. Does Lydia want in? Does she want to come in? Because I know she asked when it was starting.
I know that Cliff Stamp wants in. If you can send him a link, that would help me out. I can ask if Lydia. Did I broadcast to you, by the way?
I don't know. It don't matter. I'm gonna drop back out and see if I can add Cliff Stamp. So.
Again, I appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. If not, you probably have to shut it down and try and start a new one then.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
All right, I'll give it a try. Hang on.
Cool. Thanks again. Yeah, this is super frustrating. Anyways, to answer your question, reason, or to answer the first part of it, I think that I've been telling. There's a really thoughtful. Oh shit! Now I'm gonna be echoing myself. To answer your question, reason, or to answer the first part of it, I think that yeah, there's a really thoughtful theist out there named David. I think he's Dutch. And I was telling him that, look, fine-tuning arguments are just actually a lot of different arguments against them, and I'll get to them. I'm talking about how there's so many arguments against them, or that the arguments are unpersuasive. But I promise you, I'm not just going to be talking about that. I'll actually get to the arguments. But really quick, I should mention something, even though I don't even think I'm prepared necessarily to argue against it, but I'll present it anyways if theists want to come in and talk about it. I think that the more persuasive, or at least the more, well, not more persuasive, but the more interesting argument that I think is replacing the fine-tuning argument for theists is what's called the argument from the discoverability of the universe. Now, this is an argument I think is the biggest promoter now is, oh, what's his name? Yeah, the biggest promoter now is Robin Collins. And the argument isn't that the universe is fine-tuned for life. The argument is that the universe is made in such a way that it could be discoverable, and that the idea of God can be vetted out through looking at things in the universe. Now, I totally probably just butchered it or whatever, but it's certainly more interesting than the fine-tuning argument, I think, and it actually kind of seems like it's appealing to old school concepts in theology. Like it's appealing to the old school concept of natural theology, that the universe is a wonderful world, a wonderful universe that God created just so we can discover it, just so we can use things like science and math and all this stuff in order to better understand our universe, and in so doing, better understand God. I think that's like an old school natural theology concept. I think it's kind of neat to take that and then to, I guess make it hip or modern it up to add like probability and all this stuff. Whether or not that means it's persuasive, I'm not really sure. It sounds like it might be the case that some of the arguments for fine-tuning would be able to transfer over. But, frankly, I haven't tried. So, yeah, I'm sorry for more delay.
What am I missing here? What's going on? Why am I
Hey,
waiting?
what's up, Steve?
Oh, it's only 8. Never mind.
Are you
hey,
also... Is everyone who's going to join on their cell phone, so it doesn't matter if I make it so you have to be broadcast to speak?
Well, no, I mean, if they're on their cell phone, the live feed, they can't see them, but they can hear them.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Why? What are you doing? I don't know what's going on. I'm confused.
Well, the thing is, I tried to make a Hangout and use the link from the Hangout and post it in the Google info, but at least Cliff, when I sent it to him, was not able to join. It said you are not authorized. And when I tried to link myself on another computer, I was also not able to join.
That's what happened to Jade today. The videos we were doing today, Jade was getting that not authorized error message. That's why she couldn't do the math things that we were doing. I don't know, man. Weird. Are we live right now?
Yeah, we are live, actually. It feels... Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Dragna, what do you think of my mathematical videos?
I haven't really been on Google Plus like that. I saw that y'all having a hangout, but I didn't actually watch it.
Well, my graphics were horrible, but the contents were spot on.
So did you guys, Steve and Dragnet, did you guys join through the Hangout link or through the YouTube page?
Hangout?
Oh, so when I added you guys joined through there?
Yes.
Yeah, my phone started going off, so I knew someone was adding me to a hangout.
All right. Yeah, I had a cliff stamp too. So I mean, if he checks his Hangout link, then he should be able to join too.
He never does. I should tell him to.
How do you do that when you're driving, Bob?
I'm multi-talented.
I don't want to know. Don't incriminate yourself.
No, it's pretty easy to do. I got my phone set up on my dashboard, so I just glance down at it every once in a while I'm driving, and it's like looking down to change a radio station or something. I'm not reading texting or nothing. So.
What's the purpose of this?
Well, it's supposed to be the non-sciency fine-tuning arguments, but now it's I hate Google Hangouts because yeah. Well, I briefly explained the fine-tuning argument, and then I answered some questions in the YouTube chat. Basically, someone asked. Well, the whole time I explained, I never really found the fine-tuning arguments persuasive, and I explained why that is, and then I explained what would be considered a more whatchamacallit.
More reasonable explanation, or?
Well, not even that. I gave what would probably be a better, similar argument to the fine-tuning that's been run, in order to kind of help theists up their apologetic game, because I think the fine-tuning argument really is just not. It's not persuasively run.
Well,
But
doesn't
Robin,
it run something to the effect of, I see patterns, I see some type of sophistication, and this sophistication is so precise that there could be no other explanation other than some fine-tuner.
yeah, it's the constants and initial conditions of the universe are in such a narrow range to allow for life to arise. That is, we live in a life-permitting universe, and it rests on the idea, like, I almost feel like I'm not giving the argument its justice, but it really does seem like the rest of it is just to pull is an argument from incredulity. It's like, look, if this was just a little bit this way, then life would no longer exist. Isn't that crazy, guys? Am I right?
Well, have you heard Fiona's argument, or Fiona's the point which she talked about puddle, and she got it from somebody else. She got it from, I think it was maybe it was Dawkins, or so, I don't remember.
She does the anthropic
she got it
principle.
from, she got it from the guy who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What's his name?
Oh, Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams. Basically, if you have a hole in the ground and it fills with water, you have a puddle. Now, was the hole designed to hold that amount of water, or is that this amount of water the result of the size of the puddle? That's all the fine-tuning is. We're here because of the conditions of the universe. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like I'm trying to, I actually remember hearing that and thinking, yeah, that is pretty slick. And then I remember, well, there might be some, I mean, I think that a lot of muddlement can arise where someone would say, well, the whole thing is that this hole in the ground was made just so perfectly that such a right amount of water could fill in it in order for, I don't know, this isn't really that nice of an example, but maybe mosquito larvae could actually survive long enough to become mosquitoes and then populate the rest of the puddle. This puddle was made just so perfectly, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good counter, man. I really think it is. It's really basic too, simple.
Yeah, it does sound so. Yeah, and I do like Douglas Adams, so you got me there too. Man, okay. Steve, can you send an is there any way you can? Because I'm sorry for asking you, but is there any way you can invite Maximus
Yeah.
to this?
Max Hangout or Maximus?
Yeah, Max Hangouts. It's the same person. Well, he goes
Okay.
to this because I can't even access my own Hangout on Google Hangouts.
Added him.
And Cliff Stamp, if you could.
He's already been added.
And if you, Steve, if you comment in the side chat, I'll give you whatchamacallit.
Ooh.
And
I like whatchamacallit.
yeah, I'll give you mod. So comment in the YouTube side chat.
You're only an hour from me, Joe. I'll try it right now.
Nice. Nice. That's you missed the atheism after dark sesh last time when that was possible.
Pretty lonely.
No, wait, you were in there actually. Hey, Max, how's it going?
Hey, homies, what's up?
Hey, Steve, I just want to warn you though. Only take the tip of that whatchamacallit. Don't take any more.
Alright, so I'm sharing controls with all y'all. Like, hey, Steve, guess what? I'm going to see if this works out for you. I want to make you slightly louder. Don't make me regret it.
I'll start singing songs like
And he just screams into the microphone.
Yeah, oh yeah. Did you comment in the YouTube chat? Because then I can give you mods, and then maybe could you post the link that you have for this hangout in there and see if that makes any difference? Oh, that's. Hold on a second.
Okay, turn off your dildo.
Oh, you mean the live feed?
Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting to put on the do not disturb noise. There, my bad. I was just overhearing the hangout, and I just thought I'd pop in and comments. I was going to ask if you brought in it's a certain thought experiment that's usually brought up with this. So with the fine-tuning argument, one response is kind of like the anthropic principle, something along the lines of, well, why are you selecting for life-permitting values? Like, what's so special about that? Why not volcano-permitting values? Or...
Yes.
And why is human existence so significant as to posit this? And usually there's a thought experiment given as a response. So it usually goes along these lines. Imagine that you are blindfolded and you are put at a stake, and you had 5 shooters all expert marksmen who are ready to shoot at you. They fire 100 rounds coming your way, and all of them miss. Now, it was really by chance. A lot of people would claim it was by chance that you would survive that, but that wouldn't be a sufficient explanation in that range because of how unlikely your life was permitted to live. So, if somebody in that specific scenario where we know the constants deserves to be looked at, then why not our own as a collective?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the argument. I forget the name of the person, but it's the first part of it. I know that Neil Manson, I believe, he came up with the concern that, look, I guess this actually does dip into the sciencey aspect of it, but he came up with the concern. It's like, look, what's to suppose that what is it about life that makes people orient the enterprise of cosmology towards as like a reference point? Like, why is it that we're saying that we're so worried about the universe being fine-tuned for life? What if it would be more lucrative to say the universe was fine-tuned for, well, you said volcanoes, but the first time I heard this argument was from Richard Carrier, who said black holes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I use volcanoes just because I remember being in a discussion a while ago with Justin Cheever, and that's what he used with me. So I'm guessing that's why it stuck with the volcanoes, whereas I never heard Carrier's response to it. I presume you're right, and he said black holes.
Yeah, you said this would be non-sciency, Joe. So
I know, right? Well, the thing is, it's still like non-sciencey in the sense that, like, one of the things that was really annoying with Darwin's deity was it seemed like his goal was to go through every single constant mentioned and go, do you know what this constant is? And then kind of go, well, you don't know what this constant is, so blah, blah, blah. And so...
Wait, he's gonna browbeat someone on their
Yeah.
knowledge of science? Really?
Yep.
Are we really doing that?
And, like, it seemed... But the issue is the whole time he was just adamant that he wasn't saying these constants are fine-tuned to permit life. That wasn't his contention whatsoever. And it's like, this is the thing. I think he was trying to make it so, look, this one constant, it's fine-tuned so this thing doesn't happen in the universe. This other constant, even if we add it, it only is fine-tuned to make sure this thing doesn't happen in the universe. And I think he eventually wanted to go, now all these constants combined make it so the universe is fine-tuned for life to exist. But he was going way too slow, and it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working, and he looked really sketchy saying, I'm not saying that it's fine-tuned for life, when we all know what the argument is for.
Well,
And-
I got into a conversation with him about that, and he told me, he goes, well, yeah, the universe is fine tuned for life, and it was off by just a minuscule amount.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be here. And I asked him, well, what's a minuscule amount? I asked him, I go, well, yeah, so tell me what's a minuscule amount. And he's like, well, he went into this little long thing, and then his final words were a small amount. I'm like, really? You just told me that yeah, all you did was change minuscule to small. You didn't tell me what that factor would be, you know. And that's why I asked. That's why I asked Joe. That's why I asked Joe the one day. You know, how I know the Earth moves away from the sun as it rotates. You know, it gets closer and further away. You know, how minuscule is that amount? You know. But
It goes a pretty good distance away from the sun, back and forth.
He could have. Yeah, he should have just said 1 minute. Well, he should have just, in my opinion, he should have just gone for broke and say something like, "Well, 1/1 billionth." And if someone corrected him, then, well, yeah, at least he'd have a chance if he just. But
away with that? No.
That's the other issue that I was trying to explain to him. I'm like, look, a lot of times this argument is just given using terms that you use in probability. But when you ask them, well, how did they arrive to how did they come to the conclusion that it's highly unlikely that everything would be just right? To say it's unlikely implies some sort of, it's a probabilistic thing. If you say you're just using it for, colloquially, then it's like, oh, okay, why are you still saying that? And it just becomes a weaker argument for him. But it seems like if you're going to go, well, look at the science, this is what it says, then telling me what was the test, what was the probabilistic means that you went through in order to arrive at your conclusion, that's going to be more persuasive. But he refused. He refused to do it. And, he just kept on saying, it was Leonard Susskind. He just kept on saying, are you going to deny what an authority in the field says, Leonard Susskind?
And then he denied what the authorities in the field of cosmology with regards to the Big Bang had to say, which I found hilarious.
There, right? He doesn't. He doesn't accept the Big Bang. You know, Susskind is a string theorist, and most scientists, or a lot of scientists, don't accept string theory. So what, Darwin?
Well,
I like him a lot, but I don't agree with him on a lot of things, and a lot of scientists don't. So what?
This was like, one of the points I made is, well, I can just bust out Sean Carroll who disagrees with him, so they cancel each other out, so address my arguments. But this is the issue, I think that, look, if you're going to get into this appeal to authority or you don't know science thing, it becomes a he said, she said issue, where, like, if you're talking in front of an audience who aren't sure about the issues, they're not going to be able to really know. They're hoping that one side is more accurately representing the scientific field, but ultimately that depends on who they're more skewed for being right, and it depends on whether or not they're going to be interested in going out and looking for themselves. So sometimes I think it might be good to give, like, good analogies like the one you mentioned, Steve, about the puddle, or analogies that for now I don't see any flaws in. I have a feeling that, yeah. Oh, by the way, Steve, I gave you mods. If you could post it in the thing, and then I'll send it to Cliff, and we'll see if it works.
What am I doing? I don't know how to do this.
Okay, so go to the top of, go to your, are you on your phone?
I have my computer here, or a computer here, a piece of shit. I'm on the
Okay.
video.
You can copy and paste the link, the URL, and paste it into the side chat on YouTube. And
Video.
what?
Video to the Hangout.
Yeah, the what we're in right now.
Hangout.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a little more difficult. Crap. I can't do that when I'm on my.
Max, why don't can you post something in the side chat or in the YouTube chat, and I'll add you.
Oh, I'm here. I don't
I'm
need to.
giving I'm giving everyone mods. Everyone gets
Oh,
mods.
wait. Oh, I see. So I have to put something
Yeah.
in the live stream? Gotcha.
Do you exist, Max? Are you here? Sure you're here.
No, I'm a figment of your imagination. Ooh.
And I like blondes and females. So
All right. Cliff is telling me to stop bitching. So,
here's one
uh,
argument,
so,
Joe.
yeah. So I don't know if you can figure it out eventually, Steve. Can you post the link to the browser you're in right now for this Hangout into the side chat, and hopefully that will work. If not, fuck everyone.
I can do it real quick. I think. Give me a second.
Okay, so yeah, so I mentioned it a while ago, and I feel bad for not bringing it back. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of non-sciency arguments. There's a whole bunch of non-sciency arguments you can give against a fine-tuning argument. Maybe they involve a little bit of probability, but they're arguments that don't require you to go. It doesn't require the audience to go, well, is this person talking about the literature properly, or is this person? And also doesn't. I think that some people kind of get hung up on going, well, you don't know anything about science, so why are you saying that kind of thing? And it might not look good for people. So there's a couple arguments. One of them is what Max was talking about, which is just to question the whole reasoning behind choosing the universe as fine-tuned for life, when it seems to me there's no reason to suppose why we can't figure out a way to look at the constants and say that they're fine-tuned in such a way to make black holes arise. And the reason why I think that that might be interesting is because one of the arguments against fine-tuning is to say, well, look at the universe that seems so hostile to life. The universe it took so long for life to arise. Life only arose on our planet, and eventually, actually, it's going to be destroyed, and we can't survive in the rest of the universe. That kind of thing. Why isn't life abundant all throughout the universe? And a common apologetic response to that is, look, don't rush God. He can do whatever he wants. He doesn't have to worry about efficiency. If God's like this is the example from Lenny Espinito. God's a rancher. He wants to have a nice big ranch and with lots of fields for animals to graze and stuff. So the size doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't necessarily work against a designer or God being a designer. But it seems to me that argument can be used against any person who's doubting, the hypothesis that the fine-tuning is for black holes. Like someone might mention, well, look, there's not that many black holes in the universe, and black holes are freaking weird, and what's up with them? And it's like, well, don't freaking question God. He wants to take his time making these black holes. He wants to make sure the black holes are comfortable in the universe. don't question the mind of God. You might, and it's like that seems just as reasonable to say for black holes as it is to say for permitting life. But because we have such a, I mean, because we are living, because because the arguments for so long have been saying, look, the universe was fine-tuned for life, and it was fine-tuned for us specifically, and with respect to certain theologies, we have this attachment to the argument that it was fine-tuned for life. And so I see the argument that you could say just as easily it was fine-tuned for black holes as persuasive, and it's a nice non-science-y argument, but ultimately I actually don't see it as being persuasive to other people, especially to believers.
Well, I think it's because what convinces a lot of people to look into fine-tuning is, remember the thought experiment I mentioned before. Like if there was a very random event that was to take place, like a lot of like for example, there's sometimes your computer will repeat itself over and over again on certain programs and then just randomly stop, and then you'd think to yourself, wait, why did it stop there of all places? And then you just wouldn't care about it. You just move on. But when it comes to our own existence, let's go back to the thought experiment earlier when you had 5 expert marksmen shooting at you and all their bullets failed. You're far more interested to know why that failed. You're not likely to take chance into account. You're going to want a sufficient reason for why that happened. You're going to inspect the guns. You're going to want to analyze how good these expert marksmen really are, etc., etc. So I think that might be the main difference here, and I think that's why black holes don't interest us in terms of origins. But when it comes to our own lives and why do we exist as opposed to not exist, like that is far more interesting.
Well, couldn't you say that it is fine-tuned for black holes since we live in a black hole? And if we didn't live in that black hole, we wouldn't exist. So the fine-tuning was to produce the black hole that we exist in?
Well, I mean, in terms of purposes,
Black hole.
I mean, in terms of if the universe is fine-tuned for life, its fine-tuning for black holes would be a byproduct of its fine-tuning for life. But I suppose someone who's a black hole theorist or someone who's more interested in black holes could say, well, I mean, maybe humans are the byproduct and black holes are the reason. It really comes down to what I believe people put more value and interest in what they want to know about. So I really think that's why the fine-tuning argument for life is far more persuasive than the fine-tuning argument for black holes.
Discuss.
I said my part. I'll let anyone else react to that. Maybe it's because we have intrinsic value.
Now you're getting a bit too theistic for me. Settle it down. Settle down.
Well, technically, you can be a non-theist who believes that human beings have intrinsic value. I mean,
That's true.
Yeah. You don't have to be a theist to be a Kantian, and Kantians would hold that human beings are a means in themselves and not a means to an end. I mean, ends in themselves and not a means to an end. And of course, Aristotle was a theist. Under Aristotle's notion of humanity, he thought everything had an intrinsic purpose. So you got that going.
Spoons with their spoon-making qualities.
Spoon-making qualities.
Or spooning. Oh well. See, spooning doesn't sound right. There's spoon-like qualities.
Yeah, I was gonna say spooning is I mean, spooning's another hangout I got planned, but
there you go.
You're not all invited.
Big spoon, little spoon.
Well, if it's all 5 of us, then I think we're going to have to go in a pattern from biggest to smallest.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
And on the 8th day, God weeps for the internet.
Wait, you're 6'2"?
I am 6'2", yes.
You don't look 6'2".
I am.
See him sitting down. Well, it's kind of like
No,
Brett King. You never see him standing up.
he doesn't. I mean, what if he's just all legs?
Oh, I actually have some pretty long legs, so that could be
Okay.
it. But yes, I am 6'2".
All right. Well, you're the biggest spoon. Oh man, this means I'm going to be the little spoon ultimately. Okay. All right.
Way though, but that's
I
okay.
mean, we could go by the body mass index and factor in your weight there. So.
Okay.
Oh, guys.
All right. So,
Okay.
Steve, we're not forgetting you if that's what you're thinking.
Because I know I'll be a little spoon if only in one.
Okay. So, there's that argument, and then the other argument I've run before. I just think it's kind of neat. Um, I'll just briefly mention it again because it's I found kind of a simpler way to explain it, but it's the electrons in love argument. Do you guys remember that from last time I mentioned it, or I can mention it again?
Ooh,
Um,
please go ahead and mention it again.
okay. The argument takes into consideration a couple things. The thing we find so miraculous about the fine-tuned universe is that it allowed minds to obtain. It allowed for minds to happen. And so the other thing is it asks you to suppose that dualism is true. Oftentimes that's kind of dualism to some extent you do have to suppose is true if you think the fine-tuner is God, for example. It's a non-physical person, a disembodied mind. Dualism is that our minds are not connected to the physical. Yeah, minds are non-physical essentially. If this is the case, then it turns out that this would allow for like a crapload of different what are called psychophysical laws, laws that allow for laws that pertain to laws governing how minds are attached to physical objects. Like there's a lot of like it's pretty much the fine-tuned constants. All those constants eventually lead to complex organisms to arise with complex brains for us to think, hey, we should worship some god right now. So those are psychophysical laws. But the thing is that if dualism is true, then even if we have laws that don't allow for complex physical, structures to arise, we could also have had different psychophysical laws which allow other types of physical matter to have minds. Like if dualism is true, then what's exactly committing us to having minds arise only after huge complex brains are created? Why not just after the Big Bang we have hydrogen atoms. After the Big Bang we have hydrogen atoms. A hydrogen atom has a proton and an electron. Why not just have a proton and an electron have minds? If it's the case that we're looking at the psychophysical laws of the universe, we can look at a psychophysical law called the strong nuclear force, which in so many words it says that opposites or it says that the stuff in the it says the stuff in the nucleus will actually hold together, and it also to some extent talks about the attraction of electrons, which are negative, and protons, which are positive. Why not just have that be the one constant or psychophysical law, and have electrons have minds? So if there exists minds, if we can just have minds obtained through dualism and have them just be on electrons instead, it seems less unlikely. It makes it less unlikely for us to suppose that a fine tuner was behind them the laws. There are countless ways psychophysical laws could have arranged that would still do the same thing, create minds, and they would in some cases create even more minds than what we see today. So there's no reason to think our universe really is fine-tuned by a divine creator, because if dualism were true, he could have just said, hey, electrons can have minds. And so there could have been so many different ways that a universe could be organized with so many different psychophysical laws to allow for minds to be created. Does that make sense so far?
I think it does. So from what I gather, the fine-tuning constants don't really matter, because no matter the constants, some fine-tuner could have made it such that a dualistic state of affairs could have obtained from only basic elements.
Yeah.
And I guess
yeah.
the good argument. I guess perhaps if I was the theist, I would argue, well, I would actually, the only thing I could see here is granting the whole argument and then just going and arguing that, okay, fine, it's not proof for a fine-tuner, it's just to show that, on naturalism, the constraints couldn't be explained because on naturalism, we'd have to state that the brain is material it could have only obtained with, what we know of psychophysical laws that we have. So I guess you could you might be able to treat it as a reductio, maybe in a similar way of which I treated the Kalam when I figured that, yeah, this isn't really going to get you to a god, but maybe it's naturalism.
Well, the thing is, I think that if you use the fact that the fact that we have minds with respect to the psychophysical laws we do have in this universe could be used to actually point to, I guess, a naturalistic hypothesis, because at least there we can try and figure out the likelihood. Whereas if it's the case that dualism is true, then there's no way, then it's kind of inscrutable what we can infer from the psychophysical laws, because it could have just been one psychophysical law, the strong nuclear force, and only hydrogen atoms, and we could still say, well, this psychophysical law is fine-tuned to allow the electron and proton in a hydrogen atom to have minds.
But is such a thing, do you think, permitted on naturalism? Like, could the naturalists...
That's not permitted on naturalism, but the thing is that since it's inscrutable on a theism that contends that dualism is true, because it could be all manner of different scenarios or organization of psychophysical laws. We can't really use probability to gauge whether or not it's more likely that theism were true based on the psychophysical laws we do have here, because it competes with all the other possible scenarios, diluting the probability that this is the actual life-permitting universe that would be created. Whereas on naturalism, you can use likelihoodism, which, or you can use kind of like a, similar to the argument I used against true empiricism a while ago, the fact that given the fact that our universe is made in such a way, the hypothesis that it was done due to naturalistic means is more likely, because it's because it has less options that are diluted. Whereas the options under the hypothesis that our universe is the way it is due to theism has a crapload of competing options. Like I said, it could have just been hydrogen atoms and the strong nuclear force.
Right.
You just spread it out more and more. The argument, it's more kind of silly. Like the title of the article is called "Divine Fine-Tuning and Electron Love," because it talks about, look, you can have electrons with minds, and you can have their relationship being influenced by the psychophysical law of the strong nuclear force. this influence could allow them to be attracted to each other, and maybe the electron could fall in love with the proton. And he doesn't say this, but I always thought, but everyone always got a kick out of it when I said it. I mean, this seems like it actually would be consistent with like more fundamentalist Christian concepts, because it's opposites attracting. You're not having like a same-sex relationship occurring, because an electron and a proton, you have opposite charges. Whereas, in our universe, it could be the case that same-sex relationships would arise. Steve, were you about to say something?
Okay, maybe way off base here. Something about this argument that's bugging me. It's not. It is science. It's a little sciencey, which I didn't want to get into. But I don't know how you're relating to the strong nuclear force to just hydrogen and electron.
What's the strong nuclear force? Maybe you can refresh
strong nuclear force is what holds the nucleons together. It's actually a secondary function of the quarks inside the nucleons.
Which one is it related to allowing opposites attract? Like
there's a secondary thing on that. There's a meson. There's a thing called a meson, and a meson allows the nucleons. It goes back and forth between these neutrons and protons and all this other stuff. But you don't have that when you only have one proton.
Okay.
So how does the strong interact?
What is it that's keeping which psychophysical law, I guess, or which constant do you think would be identified to keep the electron and the electron like orbit around a nucleus then?
Oh, is that how you're using it?
Yeah.
I thought he was talking about van der Waals forces at first.
Whichever one it is, in the article it just mentions strong nuclear force. It's non-sciency, right? I mean,
that would be the strong nuclear force, but it's not van der Waals force.
Yeah, like the thing about it.
Track, that's what was throwing me off. I was like,
whatever is like for opposites attracting. Because then you can go into like the cutesy, look, the electron wants to make out with the proton. And that's because there's a law out there that's, influencing this relationship to come about. I mean, the article gets kind of silly.
Just remember, there are times that, you have the electron in orbit around the nucleus, okay? It's not really in orbit. It's not like solar system. But there are times it can actually fall in and be absorbed by the proton.
Sure.
Electron capture.
So
that would be their that's them having sex, right?
Yeah, or it could be. Well, the thing is, he even answered the objection to how can you derive morality or objective morality from from just having minds and an electron or proton. And the thing is, you can have it so maybe you could just add some other constant that actually brings a conflict between them. Maybe if you add, like, I think he mentioned something about like maybe if you do make it so other elements appear, or if you actually not even that. How you can have hydrogen chains and stuff. Maybe having the hydrogen chains would bring different electrons with different minds into more closer contact, and they can influence each other and become jealous of each other. Or maybe one of them could be good friends with one electron, and then it goes out and goes, where's my electron bud? And it turns out that the electron bud was actually cannibalized by the proton. So like you said earlier, it might be the case that the proton would I guess eat.
They call it electron capture.
Yeah, electron capture. That electron capture.
Why am I having some problem with strong nuclear force? I'm not.
Whatever like law. The point is that you could take a constant, like a given constant that they're saying, and you can have it with some other scenario, and you can have it with a lot of other scenarios because dualism is true. And if dualism is true, you can have trees. Trees have minds. You can have volcanoes.
I'm gonna head out, guys. My iPad's dying.
All right, take care.
I'll have to ask Cliff on that because as far as I just thought electrons are some kind of probability model. I don't remember relating it to strong nuclear force for why that stays in orbit. I just thought it was all probabilistic. But if you related it to
Is
hydrogen, I think
that really what's like keeping you from understanding the argument, though?
I'm sciencey shit, dude. You know I'm pedantic on stuff.
Well, I think the point is, as long as you just have one constant that allows for entities of any kind,
Yeah.
give them a material mind, and bam, you're done. Life is there.
I don't like the dualism thing at all, though.
No, but it does no. You don't have to be a dualist to put the argument. You just have to agree with the dualist that such a scenario is just possible, especially if you have a God who, yeah. As long as you can just do that and say yes, it's possible if there's an immaterial mind that is God who can do things omnipotently.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that's all you really need. I really like this non-sciencey way of going about it because there's so many people who, because it's so easy to be, what's the word for it? There was a popular song that, never mind, I screwed that up. In any case, the point is, there are a lot of people who are blinded by science, that's the word, when they're in these discussions, especially if you're like a science novice and you have someone who's arguing for a fine-tuning argument and they throw out all the sciencey shit at you. It's much easier to go with argumentation, like to get him at, like to go right for the jugular there, than it is, just to discuss the sciencey parts of it. At least for those of us who aren't familiar with the science.
I said the same thing. Darwin wants the science. He tries to do the sciencey stuff. And but Darwin's thing on science is one big appeal to authority. That's all it is.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a real argument that he's ever formulated of his own accord.
How long has this been going on, you guys? Because I should get to the original argument that I really wanted to bust out, which is, incidentally, Justin Schieber, he actually has a 10-minute video on this argument. It's the argument from Divine Indifference, and this argument looks at the fine-tuning of the universe, and it argues that a designer actually seems less likely given our fine-tuned universe. And this is especially if we consider what's called old evidence, the evidence that we exist, that no matter what a life-permitting universe is obtained, then it's a plausible assumption that a designer would create a life-permitting universe no matter what. And if a designer would create a life-permitting universe no matter what, then there's no reason to suppose that the designer would pick a fine-tuned universe versus what I'm going to call a wide-tuned universe. It's a universe where the constants are such a way that it's a lot easier for life to obtain. It's more likely that life will obtain. That's a wide-tuned universe. And the thing is that if it seems more likely a fine-tuned universe to permit life would it obtain due to chance than it would obtain due to a designer. And the way that the author of this paper, Jonathan Weisberg, makes this argument is he asks you to think of like a scenario. Now imagine there's a prison, and this prison has 100 death row inmates, and they are split up into two different cell blocks, cell block A and cell block B. Now every year the warden decides to pardon one of the prisoners, irrespective of which cell block. And he uses two ways of doing that. Either just a lottery, so it's just random, it's chance. Or he calls up Judge Judy and he goes, look, can you pick someone to pardon? Now, Judge Judy is going to pardon, she's only going to want to pardon an innocent person, an innocent prisoner. Whereas it doesn't matter if it's due to the lottery. It's just you have a 50-50 chance that a person will be pardoned from cell block A or cell block B. Now, now imagine that in cell block A there are 9 innocent prisoners, and in cell block B there's only 1 innocent prisoner. And then we're asked, and then we find out later that that a prisoner was pardoned, and that prisoner came from cell block B. And given that information, we're asked which hypothesis is more likely, that the prisoner was picked from cell block B, and he was picked through the lottery, or that the prisoner was picked through cell block B and Judge Judy picked him. And it seems kind of counterintuitive, but it's actually the case that it's more likely that the prisoner was picked due to the lottery rather than Judge Judy. And the reason why this is there's a 50-50 chance that the prisoner was picked from cell block A or cell block B, because it's by chance alone. Whereas if Judge Judy picked a prisoner, it's only a 1 out of 10 chance that she would pick the 1 innocent prisoner in cell block B, because there is only 1 innocent prisoner in cell block B. Whereas it actually seemed, if it was Judge Judy who was picking, it would be more likely that she would pick a prisoner from cell block A, because that has 9 prisoners who are innocent in it. So it's 9 times more likely that she would pick a prisoner from that cell block. But as it happens, our evidence tells us that the prisoner was picked, and he came from cell block B. So the likeliness that Judge Judy picked him is actually 1/10. And since 1/10 is smaller than 1/2, it's more likely the case that the lottery was the way that the prisoner was picked versus Judge Judy. Now to kind of connect this with the fine-tuning argument that Weisberg was running, is that the Judge Judy is obviously the designer, and the A cell block is represents the section of the distribution of life-permitting universes that a designer would have to pick. It represents that section where the laws are widely tuned, because in the prison scenario there were 9 different innocent prisoners, so there were more in cell block A. And it makes sense because there would be more wide-tuned universes that allow life to permit. Because if it's widely tuned, that means it's more likely that life would permit, right? So it seems more likely that if a designer wants a universe where life will permit, and it doesn't matter, they're going to pick. She's going to pick a universe that has wide-tuned constants and stuff, versus a universe that has finely tuned constants and stuff. So, however, if it's just chance alone, if you're picking from both sides of the distribution, and it's just chance alone, it's the case that it's 50-50. And so 1/2 is going to be bigger than, like in the scenario, 1/2 is bigger than 1/10, So it's actually more likely that, given the fact that our universe is fine-tuned, it was fine-tuned due to chance than it is the case that our universe is fine-tuned and it was fine-tuned due to a designer. The fact that our universe is actually fine-tuned works against the concept that our universe was fine-tuned by a designer. Does that make sense?
Two things I have.
Yes. Go right ahead, Steve.
The two things I have that have you thought about using a whiteboard or something? Because when you talk about something, we have to visualize it, and I got what you're saying. So
you're right, and I had it ready to go, but because Google Hangouts sucks balls, I couldn't add my other.
Okay, so I understand your probabilistic argument. If the warden is going to be 0.5, and it's going to be, if Judge Judy, it's 0.1. Okay, so you're dealing with a 0.5 to 0.1 difference there. Okay, 1/10 is 0.1. I totally get that. Now, the issue I'm having is, how does that translate to if you have an infinite amount of prisoners for an infinite probability distribution? How does that affect that? Because now you're dealing with
infinite.
Well, you have an infinite amount of prisoners to choose from, like in one of the cell blocks.
How do you deal with it if it becomes an infinite amount? Well, then, I mean, that's kind of the issue that I kind of prepared for with my likeliness argument. Look, if you have an infinite amount, doesn't that necessarily mean that you have the normalization or normalizability problem to deal with? It means that if there's an infinite amount possible, well, the thing is, it actually doesn't matter, because if it's on a distribution and there's an infinite amount, this is where the argument from indifference comes in. The argument of divine indifference says that if there's a designer, then there exists a normal distribution of life-permitting universes. It also doesn't matter because the wide-tuned universes are going to be skewed towards one side of the distribution. And so if whatever that portion of the distribution, that's what's going to be the more likely portion that a designer would pick. But as it happens, our universe comes from the other half of the distribution, or the other side of the distribution. It's the fine-tuned side of the distribution, which is not the side of the distribution that the fine-tuner would pick from. Does that make sense? Yes, so I might be sucking with math.
Your distribution. When I'm thinking of an infinite probability distribution, and that things change a little bit when you're dealing with that. But just to go back to the 0.5, 0.1, I think it's easier that way. It's a good argument.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if we deal with infinities, I'll definitely muddle it more. But it's really nice if you say, look, in cell block A, there's 9 innocent prisoners versus cell block B, where there's only 1. So the likeliness that Judge Judy's going to pick a innocent prisoner from and that innocent prisoner comes from cell block B is only 1 in 10, right? Versus,
9 in 10 from the other side.
So it would be more likely. Go ahead. Well, Max, what were you going to say?
Oh, by the way, people want to.
I'm just umming. Sorry, I should mute myself.
I think you just muted yourself.
I'm sorry.
Are you letting people on the Hangout, Joe? Because the link's broken, I guess.
I mean, I've been trying to give like the same freaking link to people, and it's broken.
It's having issues.
I'm actually kind of liking the, just the small numbers angle of this.
Yeah, but freaking Cliff is smart, and it would be nice to hear what
you could add him on.
Jim has to say.
I've added them. All right, Cliff, you don't want to come in.
When I look at Hangouts, my own Hangout doesn't show up for me to add people. I don't know. I mean, is there something in this Hangout browser where I can add people?
Are you on a Mac by chance?
No, I'm on a Chromebook.
Oh, okay. One thing you could do is go to Google Plus and then just circle only Cliff and copy and paste the link there.
Copy and paste what link?
The link to this hangout.
Yeah, but that's what I've been sending him. I've already copied and pasted a link to this.
Oh, did you share on Google Plus?
No, I only share it's in the info section of this hangout. I don't know. I muddled the argument from Divine Indifference a bit, and what else?
So from what I understand of the argument, what you're saying is that let's have two cell blocks. One cell block has 9 prisoners. One cell block has one particular innocent prisoner. God is like the lottery because he's very indifferent. He doesn't care what universe he picks because in anyone he could.
Oh.
No. The lottery is chance in that scenario.
Oh, the lottery is chance.
Versus Judge Judy, who's supposed to be the designer.
Oh, okay. So I already screwed this up. All right. So the lottery is chance. So the lottery is chance. Judge Judy is the designer. Yeah. Judge Judy has a greater reason to pick cell block A because there's more people there.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it should have been the lottery because by chance the lottery would have picked one of the innocent people as opposed to by
either or. By chance it would have picked. And the thing is, remember there's 100 prisoners total, so there's 50-50 in the cell block.
That's right, 100 prisoners total. No, wait. No, there's no.
But there are 9 innocent prisoners in cell block A and 1 innocent prisoner in cell block B, which is a total of 10 innocent, right?
Right.
Okay. But chance alone, it doesn't. Chance isn't. The lottery isn't picking only amongst innocent. Only Judge Judy's picking amongst innocent. So if it's chance alone, it's just as likely to pick from cell block A as it is to pick from cell block B, given 50, the fact that 50.
The initial pick, the guy has to pick either cell block A or B, right? If he picks A, then it doesn't really matter. But if he picks B, he only has one option at that point.
The Judge Judy, the designer, only has one. The likeliness that Judge Judy would pick the one innocent person.
Not Judge Judy, the random. The
lottery.
Yeah, the lottery, because he's going by lottery. So the lottery, let's say he does it by picking A or B first. If he picks B, there's only one innocent person in there. It's much more likely that that's going to be lottery than her doing it by innocence, because she's not looking at A and B. She's just saying, out of the group, the set of innocent people, I'm randomly going to pick. I'm going to pick one. That means that there's 9 other people that are innocent that are more likely from cell block A to be picked. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
does that make sense, Max?
Kind of reminds me of your blue card thing, with the...
it's likelihoodism. It's the same principle.
Yeah, very, very similar to the blue card. You have your two pouches, two baskets, one filled with all blue, one filled with half red, half blue. You get a blue card. Which one is it more likely from? It's from more likely the blue, right? So I hate probably math is my worst. I just
Sorry, guys. My laptop just died on me as I was speaking. I didn't even see that there was a low battery. Silly me.
You're just frozen.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No, I can hear you, but you're just frozen on your image.
Oh, how about now?
You're good.
Oh, I see. Because I was still probably in there due to my laptop. But any case, all right, I see. So the chances of the lottery pick was greater, and because specifically of the indifference to which it picked from. It wouldn't matter what cell block it was, so long as that person was innocent. Whereas with Judge Judy, it would have mattered.
The lottery doesn't care about innocence. I think I need to make that clear. The lottery is just picking from the total of 100 prisoners.
Right. Whereas Judge Judy would factor in innocence.
Yeah. So she would probably choose room A because she knows there's a higher percentage of innocent ones in there, even though she doesn't know which ones are innocent, right?
I don't. I think that that's that is part of it where it's like, does she know? I think that's also a point to be made. But if it's the case that I think it's a little bit more easier to explain if we say she does know who is innocent from each one, because that means that we can flat out say she's 9 times more likely to pick a prisoner from cell block A, because
I
there
think
are 9 innocent people versus only 1 innocent person in cell block B.
how
All right.
about she had 10 folders in front of her, 10 portfolios of these people's criminal records
Yeah,
that didn't have any indication if they were in cell block A or
yeah,
B.
yeah.
It just said, I'm going to pick one of these people that are 10. There's 10 innocent people. It's more likely she's going to take one of those portfolios, even at random or however she wants to come up with her process to pick one. It's going to be from A and not B.
Right, and B represents those within the wide tune ranges and A the fine tune ranges, or is it the other way around?
Oh God, I wasn't paying attention to what you. Can you repeat that?
Oh, no worries. I was just asking if if the cell block B was wide tuned and cell block A was fine tuned, or was it the other way around?
Oh, well, the wide tune cell block is A because there's more innocent prisoners in there. The wide tune, there would be more like wide tune. Wide tune universes are more likely to have life obtain, to have life emerge, simply because their constants are more relaxed. They're more cool with having life occur. That's like that's what they are by definition, I suppose. And so it's
Why should have Darwin pop on by? He was just in the hangout I was in like not more than an hour ago.
you know, in all honesty, like I thought that I could explain this a bit more coherently. And so I'm kind of glad he's not in here because any kind I have to run it a couple times basically.
Right. I'm
Yeah.
and it would be hard to do that with Darwin, just in one of your ears, constantly going at it. So here's an objection that's off the top of my head.
Sure.
Granted, on this Judge Judy scenario, we have a judge who doesn't really care about which cell block it is, so long as the person is innocent. Am I correct here? Okay. But what if she did have an invested interest in which cell block? So, for example, maybe she thinks that by setting an example for the innocent person in cell block B, it would give more of an influence to the others in cell block B to remain innocent. Now, analogously, if we have a god who likewise might have a reason, another reason for a fine-tuned universe, then, like, for example, maybe he wants a fine-tuned universe just to show how insignificant we are compared to him. There's one talk that I once listened to about someone justifying, the expanse of the heavens, not to show that we're insignificant, but only that we're insignificant compared to the power of the Creator. Or maybe something along the lines of God wants to enable us to use a fine-tuning argument, and show how such a thing is astronomically improbable among chance. Just taking into some secondary reasons, someone can link about the Creator. Or maybe he just wants a specific people that stay together. And if you have a universe that's very deadly to life, then that's going to encourage you to be more social and stick together as a species, as opposed to just go off somewhere in a universe which is very hostile. So I think one can come up with secondary reasons based off of God's properties for why He might prefer such a universe, one proverbial cell block over another, just like one could give reasons why Judge Judy would prefer one cell block over another.
Well, I mean, the issue with it, well, some of it, I don't know if this is like a accurate criticism right away, but some of it seems a bit ad hoc. in some
I mean, it would
sense.
only be
Yeah.
it would only be ad hoc if you can't give a reason for why the creator would want X over Y. If you don't, like, if I was to say, well, for all you know, he might want X over Y, like that
Yeah.
would be ad hoc. But if I was to say, no, God wants X over Y for such and such a reason, then it
Yeah.
wouldn't be ad hoc, as far as I see it. So as long as the theist is committed to a certain axiom for why God chooses X over Y, given the nature of the entity being posited, God, then the theist might be able to get around the problem. Although that just leaves an axiom to be committed to, which might come up with certain problems later on the line. Like
See,
for
mhm.
Like, for example, if you're committed to saying God chooses X over Y, then one could also posit, for example, well, God could have designed this hyperboreal universe if he's so committed to X over Y. Like, what if he wants us to stay together? Well, so of course he'd want a universe where everything else is deadly. Well, I could come back and say, yeah, but you call this a deadly universe? Why doesn't God just make it so that's impossible to live off of the atmosphere, no matter what kind of technology we create? Like something along those lines.
I mean,
So I think,
yeah.
so I think that might be a problem later on. So that's why it would be hard to forge this kind of response. But that's one avenue I could see.
Well, the thing is, I think that because of the characterization of the argument being used, the likelihood principle, it's given given what we have, can we infer that there's a designer? Not necessarily, and how much of it can we infer based on the fact that, based on the old evidence that we exist, that life exists. That's really kind of like the only inference we can make based on the given evidence. Holy crap!
Sure.
True,
I just
and I suppose a creator who is like a fine tuner who's all loving is unnecessary. Like, why even bother committing ourselves purely to a loving fine tuner? Why not an evil fine tuner, or why not a neutral fine tuner who just doesn't care?
Again, for us low people here, were you positing that why would it be Judge Judy just looking at the fact they're innocent as opposed to any other reason? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to bring motive into it, one can infer from the nature that God might have a motive of picking a
the thing is,
fine-tuned universe over a wide-tuned universe, just like one might specify reasons about Judge Judy why she would pick an innocent person from cell block B over A.
no,
Gotcha.
the innocence in that scenario is just a oh gosh. Why am I? Sorry, people are talking really loud in my house. I can't really pay attention. Like, I'm having trouble paying
It
attention.
happens a lot, believe me.
We're almost done too. I'm getting tired.
We could invite Darwin's deity.
No, I don't want to talk to him right now. Especially since I need to, like I said, I need to kind of put in my own words here.
All right, fair enough.
Well,
I
when
think
you
your
do
first.
okay, nice. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
I was.
just the likeliness that an innocent prisoner would be picked is the equivalent to the likeliness that it would be a universe that's widely tuned versus, say, the likeliness, yeah, that the universe is, yeah, if it's just looking at the distribution of life-permitting universes. I don't know if it's necessarily pointing to any specific intention, but I think that this is something that is actually mentioned. I believe that yeah, Weisberg in the article actually points to different parts where others have said, look, we're fine with saying that we can't say why it is the case that we can't appeal to other attributes of God to allow us to pick which type of universe God would actualize, which type of life permitting universe God would actualize. And so in the article, it's really short. It's only 7 pages. In the article, it's Weisberg that postulates these assumptions that he think are perfectly agreeable to the fine tuner, based on the fact that people who run the fine tuning argument are hesitant to make other assumptions, like for example, what's the intention of the fine tuner, right? And based on the assumptions that Weisberg postulates, he still claims that the picking an innocent person is yeah. I don't feel like Reyes, who pointed me to this argument, feels I gave it justice, which is kind of a bummer. But it's the first time I've ever actually said it anyway.
Between the two arguments.
Go ahead, Max.
So, all right. Between the two arguments I heard, I think Weisberg. I think I preferred your first argument over Weisberg's argument. I think it's a lot easier for anyone to put forward, and I think you did a pretty good job of just showing us how to articulate it. I think I'm going to use that with Darwin if he ever brings up the fine-tuning argument with myself. So thank you for that.
Okay, yeah, most definitely. And the other issue is, the Weisberg argument, this is the first time I'm running it, whereas the sexy electron love argument, I've run it a few times. And also, I mean, the whole point of the Weisberg argument is to try to point out something that's kind of counterintuitive, right? It's to point out, it seems like, because it's a fine tuner, it would be more likely the case that they would pick, a fine tune. Because it's a designer, it'd be more likely the case that they would pick a fine-tuned universe. Like, that's just something intuitively thought of. But if it's the case that life already exists, we know that a universe made to allow life to exist was picked, then we can at least assume that the designer would want to pick a universe that permits life no matter what. And if that's the case, then what's to suppose that she would pick a universe that was wide-tuned or a universe that's fine-tuned? But
I think they're good arguments, Joe. But how about this for an argument, which is completely irrelevant to what you're talking about? How would it be said? All right, if someone says that life is fine-tuned and the universe is fine-tuned for life, if life didn't exist, demonstrate that it's still fine-tuned. I mean, if we didn't exist and there was no life, how would anybody ever go about demonstrating what the universe is fine-tuned for? Then would the universe cease to exist then if life did not exist? If the fine-tuning is such that it only exists for our existence and is a coextensive thing, Max? Is that the right word you possibly use?
Coextensive, yes.
Coextensive property that life has to life. There's some kind of relationship between life and the fine-tuning of these physical constants. Then, if life doesn't exist, they're actually saying the universe wouldn't exist. Would they not be saying that some way?
Well, I mean, that's I think that's the anthropic principle. But remember the earlier thought experiment I shared before about the guy who's being put on a firing squad? That is actually meant as a response to that. The response is, well, even the guy who's leaving the firing squad could say, of course the firing squad missed. Otherwise, I wouldn't be alive to see them miss and to ask the question. Well, no, that would just for a lot of us, we would feel that would actually stifle a really interesting question. Why is it that the gunman failed to shoot us? and that's what we're trying to investigate. Why is it merely chance? Is it some kind of malfunction with their guns? Did they intend to try to help me out? These kind of things. Those would be explanations. Whereas for fine tuning, just to merely say that, well, of course the constants are the way they are. Otherwise, we wouldn't be around asking the way they are. That's usually why a lot of people have moved away from that kind of response, at least as far as I can tell.
Oh, okay. But I've seen that video.
All right, guys, I want to end this, but thank you for coming in, and sorry to everyone for how freaking obnoxious this hangout was, but I blame Google, so. All right.
Fucking Google.
All right, take care, you guys. Bye, everyone.